Okay.
Inside each bottle,
This
a
is,
name.
Eric Carrasco. He served in the United States Army. His disability is PTSD and traumatic brain injury.
Conditions normally treated with prescription drugs, each with its own debilitating, sometimes life-threatening side effects, says veteran David Bass.
People's lives are at stake. My life was at stake.
Drugs prescribed for his pain and PTSD made him think about suicide and drink, sometimes blacking out. That was before marijuana. What would have happened to you if you'd have continued down the path you were on?
In my opinion, I would either be dead or my health would really be shot. We do not use cannabis to get high. We use cannabis to be normal.
Earlier this year, the Texas legislature passed the state's first ever law allowing low THC cannabis oil to treat epilepsy.
These families have no other options.
But it wasn't without opposition.
Medical to decriminalizing to legalization. They're all part of the same picture.
Advocates want to see that law expanded to allow doctors to prescribe any strain of medical cannabis. They also want to see PTSD added to the list of conditions eligible for treatment and research.
Navy veteran Kate Morgan uses marijuana to treat her severe pain. So why not just move to Colorado or something like that? People will ask.
I'm a Texan. I lived here, I breathe here, my family's here, I joined the military from here. This is where I want to be. This is my state.
And so we're going to put a toy soldier inside each bottle and display these at the Capitol in 2017 to show that we want to be released from our addiction to painkillers and psychotropic drugs and have a medical cannabis program.
A message in a bottle for lawmakers. At the Capitol, Mark Wiggins, KVUE News.
Thank you.
A Texas welcome for former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, who sat down for lunch Thursday with the Ramirez family to hear the issues faced by undocumented immigrants.
How would you feel if you came home one day and no one was there, an empty house, and all you think is, oh, they just went out, but then after hours and hours waiting, they never come back. I have to live in constant fear of that happening to me.
Despite barely registering in the polls, the Democratic hopeful listened patiently.
They saw people die trying to get here.
O'Malley promises to expand broad executive protections for certain undocumented immigrants and send a message
that our enduring symbol is the Statue of Liberty. It's not a barbed wire fence or detention camps for women and children.
Camps he vows to close if elected president, a stark contrast from Republicans led by Donald Trump, who suggested this week,
you're going to have a deportation force, and you're going to do it humanely.
The sort of hateful, racist rhetoric that Donald Trump spews out to try to scapegoat others, I think is really bad for our country, and I think all of us need to press back against it. It's this close to ethnic cleansing. I mean, the sorts of things that he's talking about.
Yet O'Malley is also critical of fellow Democrats' failure to advance broader immigration reform.
I think that Secretary Clinton and Bernie Sanders both represent the sort of failed, speak out of both sides of your mouth, gridlock politics of Washington. It's no wonder we can't get this done.
Competition he'll need to quickly run down to stay in the race. In Austin, Mark Wiggins, KVUE News.
KVUE political reporter Mark Wiggins joins us for what is becoming a conflict of international significance. Mark?
Well, Terry, the Supreme Court has upheld birthright citizenship in all but a few instances. And unless that changes, it's the law. The question is Texas following it. Mariana Lopez may never see her children again. She's undocumented, so her name has been changed to protect her identity. But her children, born in Austin, are American citizens under the Constitution. 3 years ago, their father ran away with them to Mexico. And to get them back, she needs their American birth certificates. The problem is, she can't get them.
Estoy yendo a tratar de sacar las actas de mis niños, que son nacidos aquí, pero no me las han querido dar.
Her situation is not exactly unique. 25 families are now suing the state of Texas for refusing to grant birth certificates for their American citizen children. They accuse the state of recently cracking down on the types of ID required of parents, which have traditionally included consular identification known as matriculus and Mexican passports without a U.S. visa.
And they are not accepting the documents that most migrants can get easily.
Consul General Carlos Gonzalez Gutierrez filed a briefing last week on behalf of the Mexican government, backing up the plaintiff's claims and defending the integrity of its identification. He says the policy hurts Americans and Mexicans alike.
They are obstructing our ability to protect our nationals and to serve our nationals. Moreover, we are very concerned about the fundamental right to identity that these persons have, and that right is being violated.
The brief further warns Texas policy could lead to a citizenry of undocumented U.S. citizens. On Monday, State Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a response opposing the brief. His office has refused to comment on the case, but the Department of State Health Services says it has never accepted matriculas and hasn't changed its ID requirements, which are provided without regard to immigration status. In the meantime, American children remain in limbo. For many, it means difficulty enrolling in school, getting benefits, or in Mariana's case, getting them back.
Para mí es muy importante porque yo estoy peleando a mis hijos en México.
Eight-year-old Brianna Dupe and her mom, Dina, have been through a lot.
When she arrived in our home, she couldn't even crawl.
At barely a year old, a traumatic brain injury from being violently shaken led to problems from epilepsy to stroke. Her therapy now includes treatment for scoliosis. All of it is made possible by a Medicaid program, without which
Brianna will not have access to care, and she will ultimately end up in a wheelchair.
Friday morning, Brianna told state officials herself.
I know some kids need to be in a wheelchair, but I don't, as long as I have therapy.
To see her progress now and to see this stunning, amazing girl, it kills my heart to know that she would regress.
Nearly 200 people signed up to share their stories at a hearing of the Health and Human Services Commission, which is set to enact significant cuts to the reimbursement rates October 1st, the result of budget negotiations passed by the legislature this session.
It's unfathomable to believe that these cuts would be followed through with.
Home care and hospice advocates estimate up to 60,000 children could be affected.
Access to care issues are absolutely not theoretical anymore. We have received information from 2 agencies already who are compelled to write their legislators. They have dropped their therapy program.
The commission essentially argues its hands are tied by the budget set by the legislature, but some of the top budget writers in the House and Senate have said the commission does have the flexibility to lessen the blow.
Shame on those folks who voted for this budget because they voted for these cuts.
State Rep. Trey Martinez-Fisher testified the commission should seek further guidance.
This is the time where the agency should be hitting the pause button. This is a time to take a break, not step on the gas.
A spokesperson for Governor Greg Abbott said, quote, HHSC is simply complying with the budget directive enacted by the legislature. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick issued a statement Friday calling reimbursement rates excessive, but promising to ensure, quote, that our most vulnerable citizens are able to access the services needed. Meanwhile, smaller voices just hope to be heard.
I pray that all the special needs kids will grow strong and that you will make the right choices.
Governor Greg Abbott sent a letter to President Barack Obama saying Texas will not accept any refugees from Syria.
KVUE political reporter Mark Wiggins has our top story tonight. Mark?
Well, Terry, the biggest question at the moment is whether he has the authority to do anything at all. After a moment of silence for the Paris attacks, Governor Greg Abbott vowed to shut Texas doors to Syrian refugees.
Any one of whom can pose like the Syrian refugee posed in Paris and lead to a catastrophic situation.
Whether they can legally do that, I don't have an answer for you.
The Obama administration hopes to set an example by accepting thousands fleeing the civil war in Syria. Monday saw renewed pushback from GOP leaders.
I think the president ought to suspend that program, put a moratorium on it until we can have assurances it can be done from a security and safety standpoint.
I'm fairly confident that these individuals will be clean as a whistle.
Former counterterrorism official Fred Burton warns the bigger concern is radicalization once on American soil.
The issue is, where will these individuals be 18, 24, or 36 months from now?
The risk of radicalization drops significantly with a home, a job, and a supportive community, which organizations like Caritas help find. Jo Catherine Quinn is executive director.
They are literally running for their lives.
Quinn says the vetting process can take years.
They have been vetted as someone who will likely integrate well into our community.
What about the innocent refugees that are fleeing the same terrorists?
And as the FBI director himself made clear, as the United States federal government has made clear, they do not have the capability to distinguish between those refugees who can pose as terrorists and those who may be innocent.
The president himself responded to calls to shut America's doors to Syrians Monday morning.
That's not American. It's not who we are.
Now the fight is over who it's up to.
With your eyes closed, please count with me. 1, 2. Okay, you can open your eyes. In that same amount of time, those brief seconds, an irreversible and devastating event changed my life and my family forever. I'm Peter Berry, and I'm the victim of a distracted driver.
Peter was just 9 years old in 2011 when an accident left him paralyzed, along with his 8-year-old brother Aaron. His 6-year-old sister Willa was severely injured, their parents both killed. Fortunate enough to be taken in by their uncle and aunt, their story has since inspired the support of celebrities and given the family a mission.
I miss and think of my parents every single day. I know they are watching and are proud of us for coming here to make sure that no other child goes through this type of tragedy.
Tragedy that is still all too common.
May 12th will be my grandson's 9th birthday.
Already approved by the House, a statewide ban on texting while driving now lies in the hands of a Senate committee.
Some of their loved ones might have been with us today if we had passed this bill in 2009, 2011, or 2013.
How can you look at me, my brother, my sister, our family, and all the other victims in this room and not make the right choice?
Yet support remains unclear. Former Governor Rick Perry vetoed a ban in 2011, calling it an effort to, quote, micromanage the behavior of adults. The Berries see it differently.
People that text or allow themselves to be distracted while driving have no intention of causing this type of pain, but it happens.
Your voice makes a difference, so thank you for being here.
In the meantime, the family is working hard to convince new leaders to reconsider.
It's good to be able to help people's lives and make changes. We know that if we get this bill passed, we're saving thousands of lives.
Even though we can't completely stop distracted driving, it's just good to know that we're making at least a small change.
The so-called Pastor Protection Act sounds straightforward.
It ensures that the government may not force a pastor, a clergy member, or a church to perform a marriage or related ceremony that would violate their sincerely held religious beliefs.
A protection already enshrined under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the main question from opponents has been why it's needed in statute. Bill sponsor Scott Sanford explains many churches fear having to prove their rights in court.
Most of our churches in Texas are small and can't afford the legal fees and the cost to carry out that legal battle.
Testimony on the bill has been heated.
Am I going to have to perform a wedding ceremony for an animal and a human being?
Some of people might be voting for this bill to hurt LGBT Texans.
Nonetheless, LGBT lawmakers said Thursday the religious freedom of pastors and freedom to marry are equally important.
Some fine day, my partner and I are going to be able to get married in the great state of Texas. Rest assured to those pastors and preachers who will take a more literal interpretation of the Bible, that my partner and I of 20 years will not be going to them to bless our union.
State Rep Celia Israel says no one wants to force them.
I'm going to go to a pastor or a judge or a member of the clergy who welcomes me and my partner getting married.
The final tally, a nearly unanimous vote in the Texas House. Sanford says while some of the passion was unexpected.
Thrilled that the entire legislature almost came alongside Texas pastors, churches, clergy, ministers to say, hey, we want to protect your First Amendment rights.
For now, a unique moment as the session nears its end.